right, boom. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Swaggy Vet Nation. I'm your host, Big Pen. Got my co-host with me. First Swaggy Vet, what's up, baby?
What's going on, Big Pen and the Swaggy Vets and all their friends and family? How y'all doing out there?
What are we doing today? Man, I'm just sipping on this tumbler.
Tumbler.
You can go to swaggyvets.com, get your tumbler. But hey, man, we want to get right into it. We got a very special guest today.
Very special guest.
An amazing guest today. Retired CW3, entrepreneur, country music star, Grammy-nominated. You don't get too many of them. Grammy-nominated. We're into a stage. Ryan Weaver, everyone. What's up, Ryan?
Love it. Thanks, man. I appreciate you guys having me. There's been a little bit of a time in the making. It took us a little bit to get this together, but I'm glad we finally did.
Oh, 100%, man.
Yes,
we're blessed to have you, man. We really appreciate you taking the time out. Because nowadays, time is money. So we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, you came in the military, you went in the military, a while back. What was it, 91?
Way back. way back. Yes. I was just a third grader, and I decided that it was time to join the military.
I love my country that much.
Yeah. Joined in 91 straight out of high school. Did the intelligence analyst thing. That was a bit of a decision-making process as it was, but it was interesting because I was following my older brother's footsteps, and they were both airborne infantry rangers in the Ranger Regiment, and I was not that hardcore. So I chose a different route when in as an intelligence analyst. 96 Bravo at the time, now it's a 35 Fox.
Okay, 35 Fox. And how was that, coming in? Did you get any flack from your brothers doing an intel job?
No, they both actually, I don't know if Aaron taught me too much into it, but my oldest brother, Steve, he was like, you don't want to do this bug eating thing that I'm doing here. So there's no bug eating for Ryan. Why don't you go do something that's going to be a little bit more sophisticated? And they knew I wasn't as hardcore as them anyway, so it didn't matter.
Oh, I got you. So boom, 91, fresh out of high school. You say, you know what? I want to serve my country. I'm going to do some intel stuff. And then your first duty station, Fort Leavenworth. Can you tell us a little bit about Leavenworth? I've never been there, but I've heard about it. I never wanted to go.
Well, the Leavenworth that everybody hears about was not the Fort Leavenworth that I was stationed at. So, they all hear about the federal prison and all that, but that's a very small portion of that entire post. It's actually it was great as my first duty station because, quite honestly, it's a hidden jewel for the military out there. A lot of folks don't realize Leavenworth has, at the time, is called CAS Cube. Commander is a captain's course and command and general staff college for majors to get promoted to lieutenant colonel. But CGSC was a big one there. But I got stationed and assigned to the National Simulation Center for the world-class world-class opposing forces as an intel analyst for them. And working with nothing but officers, a very small group of enlisted intelligence analysts. I was living high on the hog. I got to be honest with you. It was spit shine boots and press uniform, starch uniform every day kind of thing. It wasn't but that was long back before we decided we wanted to go to conflict with every person around the world or every country around the world. So
man.
That was back in the garrison duty time.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Spit shine boots, press uniform. That's the epitome of garrison life, man.
Way back in the day, yeah, back before they got rid of all the spit shining, right?
I know, man. I used to actually make money when I first came in because we had the jump boots and people were like, hey, I need these done. We got inspection tomorrow. I'll be in the room late shining some boots, man. I used to love it.
Oh, yeah. If all of my soldiers or when I became a non-commissioned officer, if all my soldiers didn't have glass boots, and I showed them all how to do it. If they didn't have glass boots, it was substandard, but that was just the way that I was too. I had two older brothers that were superstars and just incredible soldiers already, and standards of performance were set based off of what they had already accomplished. And I had some high bars to jump to, let's just say.
Oh, man, absolutely. So you said you was working with the Op 4 now, so because that helps other units train for when they actually go to combat. So did you have to study the units that were coming in and say, hey, how are we going to get these guys?
So essentially, we were as intelligence analysts. My job was to make sure that we knew the way that whatever enemy we were playing, whether it be North Korea or Russia or China or whoever we were playing, knew how we fought, but also knowing based off of American strategy and the way that the American forces fought, we had to know and report to. I mean, it was just like having a TOC, a tactical operations center, but just at a corps or division level. So it was a pretty huge staff of either civilian contractors, officers, and a few intelligence analysts essentially working in the reporting cell that brought the reports in, analyzed the reports, handed them to the decision makers, which essentially is what an intelligence analyst does anyway. You do that basic level analysis, give your recommendations to the commander or whoever's in charge of that shift, and it was pretty much the same thing, just at a corps and division level.
Okay, man. Awesome. What's up, Swaggy Vet Nation? Hey, if you enjoying this video, don't forget to like it right here, that one, comment, and subscribe, this one right here. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss another episode. Peace. Awesome. Yeah. And I bet they took heed of what you had to tell them since you're evaluating them, huh?
Well, I hope so. But you also, one of the other great things about that was, as an enlisted guy, it was a huge learning experience for me, because there were a ton of retired military service members that were contractors, that were officers before, intelligence officers, and then you had some intelligence officers that were working with us that were either captain or above, that had already served in units. So you got to get a lot of experience and knowledge from that level of experience that you were working with as well. So it wasn't just a, hey, I'm going to tell you that this is the way that it is, and you go based off of my recommendation. It was really a collaborative effort, and it was a great learning experience moving to my first unit, actual Army unit, with the 25th Infantry Division.
Okay, that's a good segue. How did your S2 role in that, kind of shape your military career with the S2?
Well, I started as working in the brigade, S2, as E4, because I got promoted up to E4 before I got restationed, and then got reassigned down to a battalion S2, and as the only intelligence analyst. That's where the situation is just a little bit different, because as an intelligence analyst, then based off the experiences I've had in the past and getting promoted to sergeant, your experience really plays more into that recommendation, as opposed to it just being a learning experience as a junior enlisted guy. So people tended to listen more to what you were talking about. But also at that time, I was more focused on the enemy that we were going up against, or whatever it may be, the enemy that we were going up against, and knew their methods, the way what they did, how they fought the battle, fought battles on the battlefield. And I also had other roles like maps and weather and all kinds of different things like that I didn't have in the role prior to. So, that experience was great. I mean, it was got down to the basic level of the scout platoons, got to go hang out with the scout platoons and the Rangers out there in the mud, eating the bugs and doing all that kind of stuff. And you just learned a whole lot about how reporting was done on the battlefield, how they saw things and how they were reporting it back to you, so that it would make a better battlefield picture when you were presenting it to the commander. So it was pretty awesome.
Oh, nice. You kind of got to see both ends of the spectrum there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at your level. That's awesome.
And being a battalion S2 was a fast track really to E6 as well. So got to see that E6 promotion before I was restationed again.
Okay, nice. So boom, you're Leavenworth, then you go to the 25th Infantry, and then you got to see all that good stuff, and you say, you know what, this just ain't working. I want to go be a warrant officer now. How'd that work?
Well, I actually got restationed back to Fort Leavenworth in the same job that I had before, but I was the NCOIC as opposed to the non-commissioned officer's charge, as opposed to, I don't know if you're some folks that are going to be listening to your podcast don't know all of our acronyms, so I'll try and throw that out there, throw the words out there. But I came back as the head enlisted guy, as opposed to one of the junior enlisted analysts, and then got stuck on recruiting duty. It was a Sunday at 8:00 at night. I was taking a kid to in processing MEPS the next morning. I'd worked 7 days that week. That was the seventh day. Was going straight into a new work week, into an absolutely horrible job. Recruiting just sucked. But my brother Aaron called me on the phone at 8:00 at night, and he was already down at Fort Rucker, just graduated from candidate school, and said, "Hey, they changed the vision standards for flight school. You got to think about putting your packet in." Because as an E4, when I was with the 25th, I actually started my flight physical, but I had something wrong. I thought a pupil dilation thing or whatever it was. And then I didn't think I had 20/20 vision anymore, which was a requirement for warrant officers at the time. But then they changed it to 20/50 correctable to 20/20. So I was like, went home to my ex-wife and said, "Hey, Aaron called, think about putting my packet in to go in flight school," and shooting straight with everybody out there. Gun was loaded on that marriage already. We were not doing very well, and she essentially pulled the trigger. So I put my packet in and was gone 3 months later to flight school.
Okay, there you go. And how was that going to flight school, and then you graduated top of your class? That's the accomplishment.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, there's a year and 8 months of flight school, and Aaron was there with me for a lot of my flight school, and he was a mentor and helped me study, and told me what I needed to do to advance my standing in class, volunteering for every kind of job you can for merit points, maxing out your PT test, getting first in the ruck march. They had 2 ruck marches, getting first in those, all those different things would elevate your status in class, and which at the end of it all ended up graduating top of my class. I can honestly say I don't think I was the best aviator by any stretch of the imagination. There were some incredible aviators and soldiers that graduated with me that did some amazing things in combat as well. Several of them didn't come home from combat, but it was cool to be able to. I think the best thing about it, best thing about it was that the distinguished honor graduate got to have their wings pinned on by themselves out in front of the class, and everybody else went up in groups. Mm-hmm. And Aaron and Steve were at my graduation. 2 warrant officers that had already graduated, flight school, were already stationed. 2, Ranger tabs and airborne tabs and Ranger scrolls from combat and all that stuff. And they got to pin my wings on. For flight school, which was, and it was the only time that we had been as officers together. It was the only time that we were together, all 3 at the same time. So getting those photos from my flight school graduation, being the only time that we were together as brothers. We also, what I was told, was that we were the first 3 brothers in the history of Army aviation to be warrant officers at the same time, as far as Army aviation was concerned. And, knowing the caliber of human beings that they are, or that they were, and that, following in their footsteps to be a future aviator, it was just an incredible honor to have them there to pin my wings on, and to have my whole family there.
That's awesome. Well, one of them your first salute?
Actually, they weren't there for my candidate school graduation.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So candidate school graduation happens first, and then you get your first salute, and then flight school graduation happens after that. So, candidate school graduation. My first salute, I believe, was at a private. I think walking on the sidewalk somewhere, and just happened. I mean, I was running around looking for somebody. I had my coin with me. I was a candidate, and enlisted, and like you're walking around Fort Rucker just looking for an enlisted person to give that coin to. And so I believe it was like a private first class or something like that, walking on a sidewalk. And then after he saluted me, I stopped him, and he looked like he was scared for his life because he had no idea why he was getting stopped. But then I shook his hand and gave him my coin, which was kind of cool.
I bet he thought that was pretty special.
Well, I mean, the chances of him ever having that happen on Fort Rucker is much more significant than it is anywhere else in the Army. But still very slim, because most people, they give their salute. They're trying to get their salute, give that coin to somebody as quickly as possible. And I just never was around somebody that was enlisted up until this kid. I think it may have been even the next couple of days or something like that. But yeah, it was great.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
That's good. So Ryan, what was your deployment experience in Iraq like, particularly in Baghdad International Airport?
Well, we were the second unit. I believe we were placed 4th Infantry Division. I think we did. It was 4th or 2nd. Anyway, we were second across the berm. They had already secured Baghdad International Airport. And I flew in. We actually had a choice. You could either drive in or fly in. And if you drove in, you flew out. And if you flew in, you drove out. And I was had already been I guess they because of the IP that I was flying with, whatever it was, I ended up being one of the guys that got to fly in. I straight up, when we got to Baghdad International, I almost was brought. I actually was brought to tears when we first got there, because everybody, the building was still in shambles from when the Rangers holed up in there and were being attacked and had to fight their way out of it. And it was disgusting. There were still rooms that you could tell where they had holed up in because they had pee bottles full, still, and they segregated that for the place they went to the bathroom, and you'd end up just accidentally walking through it, and it was horrible. But they were living like bums. You would think Army Aviation, they'd be living high on the hog and whatnot. No, they were using 747 aircraft parts, sleeping on chairs from 747s. They were just living like bums. They hadn't built anything for themselves. Army Corps engineers hadn't really gotten in there and started building, anything for them. And I say that, but then again, the infantry guys, they live like that on a regular basis. But you wouldn't think that for Army Aviation. You would think that they would be living to a higher standard. So, the initial stay there, sandstorms coming in and sleep underneath, it was just a completely different life experience, for probably a lot of people that went there for the first time, especially if they were living in the grunt world. But on the Army Aviation side, I didn't know. I was really wondering how we were going to perform as aviators in those circumstances, maintaining the aircraft and making sure that they were capable of flying and all that. But you learn quick. I was the flight ops guy at the time, doing all the flight scheduling and making sure everybody was on the flight schedule, and dealing with Army, the maintenance process and making sure that we had the aircraft. It was crazy, but it was super fast too, because 1st Armored Division, from my understanding, had never used Blackhawks in the history of combat. It was the first time that they'd ever gone to war and used Blackhawks. So really, we were, ash trash. We were a general support aviation unit. So we had the general support mission. So we were supporting the 1st Armored Division generals and ADCS and Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff, all those guys, all the generals' staff. But we also had resupply missions and QRF, Quick Reaction Force. We had we moved to having an infantry platoon with us for Quick Reaction Force. It was, you want to talk about a steep learning curve. Going from, I was brand new in the unit too, by the way. I had, going to digress here, not to make too much of a long story here, but in Army Aviation, when you get to your unit, you have to go through what's called readiness level progression. And you start off at readiness level 3, which is you just came out of flight school, and now they're going to put you through the basic tasks of flying that aircraft. Then you get a readiness level 2, when you can actually fly with maintenance test pilots and instructor pilots. And then you're starting to learn more of the advanced stuff with the aircraft, getting more flight time, getting more goggle time, that kind of stuff. And then you move to readiness level 1, where you can fly with another, with a PC or pilot in command, and you're a normal aviator at that point. I broke my wrist right before, snapped it in two, the day before my readiness level 1 check ride. And then I was out of flying for 8 months because I had 3 pins in the top and 2 pins in the side. And in order for you to be able to get back and get an upslip to be able to fly again, you had to be able to push down 70 pounds of pressure onto the collective for what's called a boost off maneuver. So when they get rid of all the hydraulic boost that supports all your flying, when that comes off, there's 70 pounds of pressure being pushed up into your hand, and you have to be able to push it down with 70 pounds of pressure. And this had to heal up enough for me to be able to get to that point. And that took me 8 months to get back to it, because it was just, I mean, both my ulna and my radius broke off at the end. They were completely snapped in two. So yeah, it was a pretty long process. So getting into Iraq, then all of a sudden I went from I'm RO1, just going through all the training and progression in the unit, and now I'm in combat flying. And so you're going, dust out landings. My first sling load operation in combat. And a lot of folks out there, if you don't know the sling load side of things, carrying stuff underneath the Black Hawk, with ropes, as they would call them, but slings. My first sling load operation was on a 10-story building in downtown Baghdad, pulling anti-aircraft guns off the top of that building and ammo nets, cargo nets. So, I mean, if you can imagine, I had done one training sling load prior to that. One training test, just give me a test before that, and then I was sling load qualified, and my next sling load was off of the top of a building downtown Baghdad. So you can imagine I was white knuckling it like nobody's business. You couldn't have air blown a BB up my butt. I was making diamonds out of coal, I'm gonna tell you right now. But unfortunately for the guys that were on the ground that were right underneath the aircraft, had no idea that was my first one. But and the crazy thing is, that day we almost crashed the helicopter I was in as well, with a whole different experience, because we had a brownout at 300 feet above the ground and still had to drop that anti-aircraft gun. But yeah, that was a crazy day. But so Mike, and then I was only there for 7 months, so I don't claim to be this big war hero or anything like that. And my brother Aaron was deployed there on right before Thanksgiving in October. He was a cancer survivor, was non-deployable, got a waiver to be deployed, and he was there. He got deployed with the 82nd. He was with the cavalry with the 82nd there, and that waiver to be deployed required him to get bi-monthly blood screenings for his cancer. And he was a passenger in a medevac helicopter on the way to one of those bi-monthly blood screenings. And then when he was shot down and killed in action, and that was the day before I flew out of Baghdad on January 9th. He was killed on January 8th in 2004, and I flew out of Baghdad on January 9th and never went back to combat after that.
Yeah, it was crazy because not to cut you off, Battle. I couldn't believe, after me and you were talking, we were like over there at the same time.
Yeah,
because I was saying before, we was right on the flight line in this, like the little building you was talking about. We luckily had a really good carpenter in our platoon, and he built up that place, and we made it look really good. And and then when you was talking about your brother getting shot, that was some of our guys in our unit was there, and we had to go help clean that up, and that's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. Yeah.
Were you were at TQ, right? Outscaling?
Well, some of our unit was at TQ. Our battalion was at TQ, but we had a smaller element there at BIOP.
Oh, I got you. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you told me that. Yeah,
it was right across from Chow Hall, right there, and they had a little building, and right down the road with the FSSP, the fuel point. Yeah.
I mean, we were on the in the big hangar. The two big hangars where they had the 747s.
Yeah, you was across the other way. Yeah, of the flight line.
Yeah, were you that? You were there when the 11 Cab burned down their hangar, weren't you?
Yeah. I
remember they burned down their. Were you there when we? I don't know if you remember this or not. When the Black Hawk hit that, they put those metal basketball goals on the flight line, and the Black Hawk took off the tip caps of the rotor system, and daggum near killed a dozen people with shrapnel flying. There was a specialist in the 11 Cav hangar. You got to see where we parked our Blackhawks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a specialist that was in that 1-1 Cav hangar that had a piece of shrapnel from the rotor system go through his boot and almost cut his toe off.
Oh God!
And that was 200. I mean, that was almost 2 football fields away.
Yeah,
that was crazy. Yeah,
we woke up one morning and I heard this loud boom. I was like, "What the heck is that?" And then later on in the day, our NCOIC said, "Oh yeah, a C5 just got shot with an RPG trying to land."
Yeah,
but it didn't do any damage to it, so that was good.
Yeah, I thought the funniest thing always was when we got mortars incoming or whatever it was, and they all said, "Yeah, just go inside this aluminum building and you're protected."
Yeah, that's back then. We didn't even have armor on our vehicles back then.
Nope, it sure didn't. Soft sides.
Yeah, it's like, hey, put some sandbags up here. We'll be good. I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, we actually, I don't know if you remember when we were first coming in, our unit, someone dropped a hand grenade in one of the Humvees and killed a kid going in the front gate in the buyout.
Oh,
our first day.
Holy moly.
Yeah. The first day the convoy made it up. Our aircraft were there a little bit ahead of time, but obviously the first day the convoy came up, somebody dropped a hand grenade in his soft side, killed him. Yep.
That's crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm. So Ryan, you hear that your brother had passed Aaron, and shortly after you was flying out of Iraq, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how did that impact you personally and professionally as you moved on within your career?
It destroyed me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was So Steve, my oldest brother, is my half brother by adoption. I look at him as he's my brother. Second greatest man I've ever known next to my dad is Steve, but Aaron was my only full blood sibling. And I followed in his footsteps my entire military career. As I said before, his standard performance was mine. I always marked whether I was doing well or not as to whether I accomplished the things that he accomplished as well. There are a lot of things I wasn't going to accomplish because I wasn't a Ranger. I didn't go to Somalia. He was in the ambush in Mogadishu. The Black Hawk Down was made after. He was in the best Ranger competition, got 4th 2 years in a row. I mean, he was a superhero. He was as awesome. I mean, as incredible of a soldier as you could get. Not a single person had a bad thing to say about him. Can't necessarily say the same thing about me, but I mean, he followed in his footsteps. And, for the first time in my life, I had to make my own footsteps and figure out what I wanted to do with myself. And I flew the day he died. I had a mission that day. Oh, wow. And we landed and came back into the TOC, and it was all over Fox News that a Black Hawk had been shot down west of Baghdad, and they were showing the smoke coming up from it and all that. And my crew chief walked in and dropped his gear, and he said, "Man, my parents think I'm dead right now," because of course, the news never gave any information, information out about whatever it was. It was just generally speaking, Black Hawk shot down west of Baghdad. And I had to reverse out that night because I was going to fly nights the next night. Aaron was actually supposed to come and visit me 2 days after that. And I got on Yahoo Instant Messenger because we had a little internet cafe by that time, and was on with my mom. And, she said they're saying that it was a medevac helicopter. So I knew it wasn't you initially. I was concerned, but she knew I didn't fly medevac. And I said, "Yeah, everything's cool. I'm good." And logged off to go to bed, and they showed up at her door 15 minutes after that. So to notify her that Aaron had been killed in action. And but for me, I was redeployed back to the rear as the rear detachment XO. And one of the horrible things I had to do, there was nothing in comparison, obviously, to being in combat, but our guys, our unit, I don't know if you remember this, but I'm sure you do, because it was pretty traumatic for a lot of people. But 1st Armored Division and all the aviation had gotten their orders to go home. And they all went down to Kuwait. All of our aviation units were down to Kuwait. They had already shrink wrapped all the Kiowas and put them on boats. And then they, 1-1 Cav, some of 1-1 Cav was already in the air flying home. And they gave them the order to go back up. So they turned that aircraft around. Instead of them landing in Ramstein, they landed back in Kuwait. And then I got the message that they were turning them back around to send them back north again. And I had to notify all the spouses that they weren't coming home. So if you want to talk about, I had just been home to my brother's funeral, had to come back, was back at rear detachment, was the XO, and I had to call every spouse and say that their spouse who was coming home safely was now going back to combat again. You want to talk about being the messenger that got shot every time. It was horrible enough as it was that I had to think about that, much less know what their families were going through, because I myself had just gone through actually losing my family member and my entire family going through the funeral and all that. It was a pretty, I get emotional thinking about just making those phone calls. It was tough. It was real tough. But then I got restationed back to Fort Rucker and became a TAC officer at Warrant Officer Candidate School, and put my heart and soul into trying to train who I felt were future aviators to fill my brother's boots and sit in the seat that he was sitting in. And that's when things kind of got started on the music thing, on a music career as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you said when you had lost your brother Aaron, it destroyed you. Right. So how did that, can you tell me about how did that coping process start?
I think put my, diving headfirst into being a TAC officer and training soldiers. I mean, that was a 18-hour day job. I was first thing in the morning to wake them up, and I was the one that was putting them to bed sweaty at night. I was what was called the junior phase TAC officer, the first 11 training days back when I was a TAC officer. The only purpose of those first 11 training days was to see how candidates reacted to stress. And because I had a lot of anger, obviously, and a lot of passion, but I also had I think the passion to make them the best that they possibly could be, and understand what they were getting, what becoming a warrant officer meant or should mean to them. That was my initial healing process, was being able to feel as if I had purpose, which is what I think one of the reasons why we have such a high suicide rate. And going off on a tangent here, because a lot of our brothers and sisters in arms feel like they completely lose purpose when they come back. And but I felt like I had purpose. I felt like I had something that was meaningful to take up that time, and it took up a lot of time. Mm-hmm. I can say, during that process, I separated myself from pretty much everybody that I loved. I was in a really, really dark place for a long time, and I tried to take that darkness and where I was and dealing with it. I mean, if you can imagine this, the last time that I spent with my brother was in combat, but before that, I had all these memories at Fort Rucker of spending time with my brother. So if I would drive down a road that we went down, or I would go to a place that I went down, or I would go, wherever it was, if we were there, that was what I thought about. Like, that's all I thought about. And it hurt. Oh, it sucked. It was terrible. But I hope, the coolest thing is I'm actually going to go spend time with a retired W4. He and I are going to hang out this weekend, but he and I are great friends. But a lot of the candidates that I put through candidate school have now retired from the military, and the passion, and they appreciated the passion that I put into it, because there was a reason behind me being the way that I was. And I could have, as we say, half-assed it. I could have, but I put everything, all my heart and soul into it. And I think that was one of the first step to the healing process. And then I entered into Fort Rucker's military idol competition, where it was just like American Idol, but I did the Fort Rucker's military idol. And I realized when I was in flight school that I actually, because I was broke, going through a divorce in the middle of flight school. I told you guys about that. But I was broke, and the only way one of the ways I was helping pay my bills was I was doing free karaoke competitions, but winning them. And I was getting a television or getting $500 or something. I'd hawk the television off, and that had helped me I was helping pay my bills that way, because I was broke. And then I got back, I started doing the singing thing, and I was doing the karaoke again and doing singing competitions, and I was winning these competitions. And I really, when I was in Baghdad, started writing as well. so all of those things kind of progressed into me deciding that, maybe this is something that I would really love. This is something I'd really love to do. I need to take a look at this and see what happens. And then I got a phone call one day, and one of the big artists in town, in Dothan, he got a record deal in Nashville, and his band had been out touring, and their situation didn't work out with their lead singer, mostly because they were a bunch of losers, whatever. But straight up. Anyway, they were already playing the big clubs in the festival scene around, and they needed a new front man. So I said, all right, I'd love to be a front man. Here are my conditions. It's got to be my name, and it's got to be my name as an artist. And I want to work on doing some of my original material, to put some of my original material out there. And they said, okay. And eventually that didn't end up working out because, like I said, I don't know. They weren't ready to go to the next level. And I had already set my goals every 6 months to elevate myself to the next level. So going from small clubs, bars and clubs, to the medium clubs, to the large clubs, to the festival scene, and opening for national acts. And by the 7th month in my career, I opened up for Blake Shelton and Craig Morgan, Montgomery Gentry, Trace Atkins. And then the next year was Blake Shelton and Craig Morgan. But so that was 7 months later. I was already opened up for national acts. And the music and that whole process of chasing my own dream, decided to do that in honor of my brother. That was really the biggest healing step that I took in my life. It was my ability to express myself on stage. I made a promise that I would always tell a story when I was on stage. And as I went through, the reason why I went through that whole music, the progression music, because that was also a progression and healing. And I started pulling out of that dark place, because then I found my own purpose and I was creating my own footsteps, and I didn't have to look ahead of me and think about, well, this is what Aaron and I did, so this is what I should do. And this is what Aaron accomplished, and this is what I should do. Aaron never sang, he never did any of that. So it was my time to really heal and become my own person at that point. And for a lot of folks out there, when you lose somebody, one of the hardest things for you to do is realize who you are as a person without them. And that for me was a huge healing step in the music side of it.
That's right. All right. So you eventually find your purpose, your direction and motivation, and you're moving along. And then about 9 years later, you get a second heartbreaking loss.
Yeah.
Your brother-in-law. Can you tell us about Randy Billings and how that happened in 2013?
Yeah. That one was I can't say it was just as tough as Aaron, because I had already gone through that, and I knew that I couldn't sabotage myself again. But when it happened, it was just as bad for me and my family, because my sister, she's a beautiful, beautiful human being. Ashley, she met Randy in flight school. He was actually one of my students as a warrant officer candidate. Oh, wow. I was one of his instructors. I met him when he was going through flight school, and she got married, and he turned, he turned her life around and gave her a life that she didn't have before. And she was happy and appreciative of it. And she text messaged me. I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but they said that a Marine helicopter had been shot down in Afghanistan. A Marine Black Hawk had been shot down in Afghanistan. And Ashley text messaged me that next day and said, text messaged me that day and said, hey, I just got this really weird text message from Randy. And she sent it to me, and it was just a bunch of numbers and letters. And she said, no, she called me the next day. That's right. I got a text message yesterday, she said, and he calls me every day, and I have not heard from him. And I'm really concerned. Well, my wife and I were flying internationally to do some work, and I told her, I said, it's a Marine helicopter went down. You got nothing to be worried. He's good to go. I'm sure he's safe. He just probably was out on a mission where he had to stay overnight or something. And then I came back to my hotel room after working during that day, and I had 8 phone calls from her on my phone.
Oh wow.
And yeah, man, it was I was on the floor screaming. My wife had never seen me like this because I wasn't married to her when we lost Aaron, but I was on the floor in the fetal position crying like a baby. And it wasn't that it hurt me for me, it hurt me for her more than anything because she didn't deserve that. And you know, I think that one of the things I talk about on a regular basis when I do my motivational speaking is that a lot of folks don't realize the human side to the sacrifice that we all are willing to make. They don't realize the collateral damage and the human side to that sacrifice, to our brothers and sisters in arms that become friends with you and become close with you and we're willing to die for you, but also obviously the family that's left behind and all of that. And that's what we tried to put out, you know, and that's what I try to put out in the memorial songs that we've done to try and encompass that loss in the way that I felt both times. And then going back to my hometown again and going through the streets again and going to that cemetery again, and just having to go through it all. It was just still hurts, as you can tell. It doesn't go away. It eases here and there, but still, it. As you can see, I'm more emotional about my brother-in-law dying than I am, or I've got more emotional about my brother-in-law dying than I have about my brother. But I think that a lot of time in between losing Aaron and coming to grips with it and remembering how it all went through, I was numb for a long time in that. And with Randy, it was just like another shot to the face. And but you know, like I said, for me, it wasn't as hard after that because I knew that I needed to. First off, I knew how I was going to cope with it. It just gave me more fuel to my fire to want to be successful. It gave me more drive to want to go after. If I was sitting back waiting for something, if I was not doing something as soon as I woke up, or well, I mean, of course, I'm sure you guys are the same way that I am. I rarely ever sleep, but
it's hard.
But when it was time to get up and do and take care of business during the day, I was even more driven after that loss than I was with Aaron, because Aaron, it was kind of a finding myself situation. This was, I know that this is going to help me heal, but I also know that now I've got two family members who have sacrificed their lives for this country, and I need to be out there making sure that I honor those sacrifices to my fullest ability. I hit the ground running as a few weeks after that, I hit the ground running, was ready to rock and roll, and was already focused, straight up focused on what I was going to do next.
Heck yeah. Hey, I'll tell you. So I wanted to ask. So we really touched on your pursuit of country, your pursuit of music after the military. So I know you do a lot of country music, but I listen to a lot of your songs. It sounds like you got some rock in there, man.
Oh yeah. I grew up listening to Bon Jovi, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Steve Miller Band, the Eagles, all that kind of stuff when I was growing up. I mean, all the rock and 70s rock, 80s rock influence. That's what I grew up listening to. I mean, straight up though, I mean, I grew up listening to the boy bands in the 80s as well. You can't get around, Menudo and Backstreet Boys, Boys to Men, all those boy bands from back in the day. I mean, you can't. Who is it? All for One. I gotta go off on a tangent. Here's something crazy. So I went down to Tampa to do a Christmas. I was going to sing a Christmas song for Fox News down there, and I got in there, and All for One was in there, and I was like, I can't believe I'm standing in a room with All for One, and they were coming to do the same thing I was coming to do, and I was nobody, and I was just like, I can't believe I'm sitting here like talking. I was like, what? And then we're sitting in the same green room and we're talking with each other. And that was really one of my first experiences with, knowing somebody famous in the music business, like actually knowing somebody famous, because even when I opened up for some of those acts, they never came out to meet you. But yeah, that was pretty killer. I actually did that before I opened up for Montgomery Gentry, which I got to meet Troy Gentry, the one that was killed in the helicopter crash, and he was super nice. But I did that before then. But anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, the 80s rock influence it's who I am. Initially, when I started off doing things, Jason Aldean's music was the big daddy that was out on the radio, and when I was doing the club the club and bar scene. So I modeled a lot of my stuff after his, because he has a lot of 80s rock influence as well. And that's Southern 80s rock, whatever it may be. But yeah, I mean, if you listen to any of my songs, there's always, we love putting those soaring guitar solos in there. If you come and watch a show, the live performance scenes in Burn, that's what my concerts look like. I mean, it's a slamming rock and country show. We love to have a good time. And whenever I get done with my shows, I'm completely worn out, and I love it. And that's that whole 80s rock influence. I got discovered by the professional bull riders opening up for 80s rock bands. That's kind of how all that stuff went.
Yeah, I got some subs in the truck, man. I was jamming the Crank It, man. It was blasting. I was like, man. Yeah. And then, so that Beware of the Owner, that could be a Second Amendment anthem song right there, brother.
It absolutely is. It was that out of the 4 songs on the Celebrate America EP, I did not. That's the only one I didn't write. I co-wrote the rest of them, but that one I didn't write. Actually, another veteran co-wrote that with the same guy that I wrote "Get Up," the song called "Get Up or Get Out." Wrote that one in there with the same guy that wrote "Beware the Owner." Love that song. Everybody loves that song. It's a great tune. It was always great to perform at the PBR events as well. Absolutely.
So, can you talk about the significance of the single "Burn" and your collaboration with the Benghazi hero Chris Tonto? Tonto, did I say that right?
Yep, Tonto Paronto.
Yeah, Tonto Paronto and John Tigan.
Tigan.
But
that's okay. Bad. Everybody calls it Tigan. Okay. It's okay though. Nobody knows because it looks like Tigan. Yeah, but John. That was an interesting one because I co-wrote that song. If you watch Burn, Craig Wilson, he's the acoustic guitar player with the sunglasses on. He passed away a couple years ago, but co-wrote that song with him. And it was initially it was a military song. So, and if you listen to the lyrics, obviously any veteran can
relate to it.
Look to your left, look to your right, born to fight. We're all standing next to each other, kind of thing. We wrote that song initially to be a military song, and it had been sitting for a few months, and then I heard about the Benghazi guys coming to Charlie Daniels used to have a volunteer jam, started in 1969 with the original Leonard Skinner, and I got invited to perform between Ted Nugent and Michael W. Smith at the volunteer jam here in Nashville at Bridgestone Arena, and the Benghazi guy, Mark Geist, Oz, and John Tigan were promoting the film 13 Hours Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, and when I got done doing my show and all that or my performance and all that kind of stuff, and then after the fact was talking with Oz, and the one thing I've learned in the music business and pretty much any other business that you're in is if you don't ask, it's always a no. I mean, you got to be willing to ask. I mean, some people can ask for too much, but quite honestly, I'll ask until somebody says no, because you're not getting anywhere if you don't. Any business owner out there or any salesperson, when you're having to sell yourself or sell a product, if you're not willing to close the deal, you're not going to get the sell, or the sale on it. So essentially I had to sell myself, but I talked to Mark and I said, have they done the score for 13 Hours yet? And he says, I don't think they have. Why? Do you have something? I said, yeah, I've got this song Burn that I wrote, and I think it would be great. And I said, but I think, and then Mark and I kind of, he listened to the lyrics of it, whatever. And he said, I think, can you change it up to where it's going to fit the movie a little bit better? So we had to throw some just minute lyric change. I threw some minute lyric changes in there. We recorded the song, got it produced, got it done. But by the time we got it done, it took some time to get it from the producers. And we couldn't get it in the movie because they finished the score. Anyway, but then by that point, by the time we were going to get it into the film, John Tigan and I had already started talking with each other, and I said, I'd really like to get a music video funded for this thing. Is there any way that we can see if they'll let us use the, parts of the movie in the video? And John reached out to the licensing folks, or to the folks I think he reached directly out to James Cameron. But they turned it on to the licensing folks, and the licensing folks said, we'll let you use the trailer clips that are being used for the promotional on it, and we'll license it for the music video, and we'll consider it promotion for the film. Nice. So I got all these hundreds of thousands of dollars, multi-million-dollar scenes that are in my music video that were licensed from Paramount for us to use, because John Tigan got involved, and then he got involved and helped me out with the funding. Got Chris Paronto involved, helped me out with the funding. Oz at that point kind of went out of the picture when it came to funding and getting the video and all that stuff done. But then, I brought him in. We filmed it all here in Nashville. Filmed that whole video in 4 different places in one day. And, was super proud of that one. And that video was the launching board, the launching pad to my career after this.
That's awesome.
What my career has turned into, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. So, boom, you had that big old gig, and then kind of let's go back. Tell us about the touring with the PBR. How'd they go? Professional Bull Riders.
Well, that was an interesting being discovered. Time and place for everything. I look at every performance opportunity as an opportunity to move, to gain another opportunity. Yeah. So I was always seeking out the performances, but got to open up for Dokken, Warrant, and Jack Russell's Great White at a veterans nonprofit event in Colorado. Professional Bull Riders were the sponsor for the event. And I was the only veteran on the bill. Mark had actually come to the concert. Mark Geist had come to the concert. We were going to do some live auction stuff in the middle of my show. And Dokken's manager came out on the stage 2 songs into my set. And I'll spare you the colorful adjectives that he used, but he said, "You guys are done. Get off stage. Dokken will not start late." And I was up on the front of the stage performing when he came on stage and said it. And I turned around, and Trey, my best friend and band leader, he said, "Hey, they said we're done. We got to get off stage." And I said, "Oh no!" So I turned around, and my wife was filming on my cell phone, and I don't drop the F-bomb on stage in family-friendly concerts, that kind of stuff. But it was an 80s rock concert, and I was at a biker bar, so I figured I was safe. And, I was opening up for 3 80s rock bands that every other word's going to be an F-bomb. So I just went off, and I as a typical previous non-commissioned officer and a warrant officer, I told Dokken off on the front of the stage and told him I was the only veteran here. I was here to raise money for my brothers and sisters in arms. Mm-hmm. He's all about him, and I don't care when he starts. I'm finishing my set.
There you go.
The whole time I'm watching the guy who's promoting the event running down the side of the crowd. Like I could see him trucking. He's the one that put the whole thing together. And I'm in the middle of saying what I'm saying, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, I'm just telling everybody and telling this guy he can go get bent. The headliner, he can go get bent. And he's like, "Ryan, I did not tell you had to get off stage. Finish your show. You're good to go. Don't worry about it." Anyway, whatever I said and whatever I did in my show and telling Aaron's story and all that kind of stuff, Sean Gleason, the CEO of the PBR, came up to me and gave me his business card and said, "We got some big plans for the 25th year anniversary season with PBR in 2018. Right. I would really like to get you involved in it." So Steven Tyler from Aerosmith was the headliner in 2016, and some guy that nobody knew, had never heard of before in their life, was the headliner in 2017 at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas for the World Finals. And my first show in 2018 was Madison Square Garden with them. So it was a pretty incredible 2 years. And actually I got to go to Australia again in 2022 as well. So they sent me to Australia as well. So got to do all kinds of arena shows, AT&T Stadium in front of 41,000 people. I mean, there's just,
That's awesome.
It was an incredible experience. And the thing is, every time I got up to perform, I got to sing my own songs. Like every time I performed, I was singing, and I sang the national anthem for everybody. every one of the crowds. It was incredible.
Man, that's what. How did that make you feel? So that one moment, right? This guy's trying to, you're trying to raise money. You go off on him. The CEO gives you his business card. Now you took Steven Tyler's place. What significant was that with you, just to take such a big name and you take his place?
Well, the first thing that I thought of, and it's also what I talk about when I speak and also on stage, that the American dream is real. A lot of folks, especially veterans, I mean, let's just be honest here. The country music industry looks at me as a military guy before they look at me as an artist. Okay. It doesn't matter what I do, what kind of music. I was trying to stay away from that at the beginning of my career. And David Corlew, Charlie Daniels' manager, asked me why I was running from it. Because my story's legit. It's real. I could inspire people by my story, finding success in the music business, all that kind of stuff. Why was I running from it? And because I was only doing commercial stuff. I wasn't doing patriotic music and all that kind of thing. And at the moment that I started doing that, country music fans can see through something that if you're, I mean, it's not that I can't be a commercial country music artist. It's just, why would I not tell my story, and why would I not be who I am as a human being? But the first thing that I thought of was that I'm not going to take a second of this experience for granted. I'm not going to let a moment pass by that I'm not just absolutely in love with the moment that I'm in. And in that outside of the box of country music, outside of the way things are normally done in the industry, you have some guy who had no song on the radio, no record deal, no formal management, nothing. All of a sudden is doing nothing but the biggest arenas across the nation, playing. I mean, Madison Square Garden and not ever having a song on the radio. Who can say that they've ever done that? Not many people on the planet, much less somebody, that came from a 21-year military background. And that's one of the things I try to encourage other veterans, to do, because the life in the Army in the military, is really, I looked at it as a stepping stone to further my life down the line. I had no idea until I was in my late 20s that I could even sing. That's when I started doing karaoke in my late 20s. I had no idea that it was even something I was passionate about doing. And then the next thing you know, I'm performing 12 years later, I'm performing in arenas and singing my own songs. And the possibilities for military service members, because we have a drive and a discipline, most of us do. I can't say that about everybody, because we all know there are dirtbags in the military as well. But most of us have that drive, and it's instilled in us to try and do things outside the box, think outside the box, overcome obstacles. And with the losses that I had already had, the way that I looked at it is, if there was going to be an obstacle in my way, if there was a roadblock, I was going to turn it into a speed bump and blow my suspension out going over the top of it. And being able to sing to these massive arenas, the songs that I wrote, it was just an incredible experience, and something that I'll never forget, and be forever grateful that Sean Gleason gave me an opportunity to do that.
And that's awesome. That is amazing.
And we had never forgotten the tribute video that's out. We had never forgotten, and that was honored my brother, fallen law enforcement, first responders, Border Patrol, and my two brothers. And I got to tell that story every single time I was in those arenas singing for people. So no one ever got to forget about my brother's sacrifices.
Absolutely, man.
So your brothers who inspired you for the song Never Forgotten, amongst others, for 9/11?
They were the partial inspiration, yes. But we wanted to, we also wanted to honor everyone, not just my brothers, because my family was the military side of that video as far as the honoring was concerned. But there were, as you can see in watching that video, there are several other families that went through the tragedies of 9/11. Those folks were never, they never got a huge amount of being honored. A Border Patrol agent that was executed in a drug stop. The Dallas police officer that was killed in that BLM attack downtown Dallas that killed those police officers. It was it was important that we tried to write something that wasn't just inclusive of just included the military, that included all of our heroes in that regard. And let's talk about heroes. That one was very similar in that regard as well. We tried to do the same thing, but the PBR bought me out of the rights for Never Forgotten for their marketing, and Let's Talk About Heroes is actually still mine. So,
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us about the Benny Havens band?
That was, I have to be honest with you. I got to, Charlie Daniels introduced me onto the Grand Ole Opry on September 11th in 2015 for my debut onto the Grand Ole Opry, which was incredible, unbelievable. One of the instrumentalists that were in the Grand Ole Opry band that was playing behind me reached out to me and said, "Hey, he loved my performance. I actually did What You Think of Me for that one. He loved my performance and reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm producing this album for the Benny Havens band, and they've got a song on it that I really think you should sing." And so got into the studio, sang the song with him. It's on the Songs That Save Our Lives album that they had. Pretty incredible that it's the first album that the West Point Benny Havens band has ever put out in the history of the Benny Havens band. And if you look at the bottom of the album cover, it says featuring Charlie Daniels and Ryan Weaver on the cover of that album. My name is sitting right next to the late, great Charlie Daniels. Got Grammy consideration. It was placed up for Grammy consideration. They sent me up to West Point, got to perform with them at West Point. Absolutely incredible experience. They were so kind. It was just the things that I've been able to do, been fortunate to do. Like I said, not having a song on the radio, a record deal, or formal management. It's just been an awe-inspiring dream. And I hope that when folks are watching this, that they get done watching it and go out there and start taking charge of things.
Absolutely. And you're still independent, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't have some major label dictating everything that you do.
No, I don't. I mean, I've reached out to a couple of there's some smaller conservative labels that we're starting to see pop up because conservative music needs to get back into, I believe it needs to get back into our culture. I think that we've lost sight of a lot of the things that we all fought for and the values that we have, the things that we care about the most. I've reached out to a couple of the labels, but as they're small labels and they're pushing, some bigger artists that are on the conservative side of things. So, I mean, if I get a record deal, I get a record deal. It's not gonna hurt my feelings, but at 52 years old right now, most record labels are looking to sign 16-year-old TikTokers as opposed to a 52-year-old, retired military guy. And I'm perfectly fine with where I'm at. If I don't get that record deal and I still want to make music and put out my own music, it's not going to change my career one bit.
We got to sign the Swaggy Vets.
Yeah. Hey, 52. I hope I look that good at 52.
I know, right?
I appreciate you.
So how did you, so I know you was touring and everything, but how did you kind of stay positive and creative during COVID?
Well, the one thing that I learned as an entrepreneur, as you mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur. The one thing I learned as an entrepreneur, as an artist, was how to attach my name with partner brands. And essentially what I have done is I know my demographic. My demographic is you guys. My demographic is law enforcement, first responders, veterans, military. I know my demographic. And it's maybe a small demographic in comparison to the rest of the United States, but is a very loyal demographic. And it's a very supportive demographic. And all of my partner brands, I went after partner brand. Like one of the partner brands that I started working with was a small family-owned boot business called Lane Boots out of Texas. The CEO came up to me during the PBR and said, "Hey, see you're wearing a pair of Corrals. Would you like to have your own cowboy boot line?" And I'm like, "Sure." So essentially, we spent the next 8 months designing cowboy boots, put my logo on the back of them, and you can still get them, by the way. They're called Old Glory by Lane Boots. Lane's not making them anymore, but they're online everywhere still. They're running out, but they're online. So, the T-shirt brands, I was initially with Grunt Style. They're with Nine Line now. with Grit Gear Apparel. But essentially what I had product ideas that I want, and they had to be products that I was going to use, or things that I was going to, that I would actually wear, or products that I would use. So I just started reaching out. Back when I was doing the touring, the PBR, started reaching out to different product lines and saying, hey, I'm really interested in working with your company. I'd love to design a Ryan Weaver Heroes line, or a Ryan Weaver Old Glory line, or a Ryan Weaver this line, or whatever it is. And then say, it's the Ryan Weaver Old Glory by Lane Boots, or it's the, Ryan Weaver Heroes line shirts by Grit Gear Apparel, or Patch Operations, Ryan Weaver Heroes line by Patch Operations. And essentially I just put my name on stuff, and then we designed these products. And fortunately, during COVID, first responders, military and law enforcement didn't lose their jobs. They just got to go home and still get paid, which meant they were still on the internet at home getting paid and buying stuff. So my partner brands actually skyrocketed during COVID, and I lost 18 shows overnight. So I lost a bunch of money, but I still was able to pay my bills.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah.
That's an entrepreneur right there.
Yeah, it's definitely an entrepreneur.
Right. So what drives you right now, Ryan, to keep speaking and performing across the United States and internationally?
Well, I love making people forget about their lives 3 minutes and 10 seconds at a time. Each song I get to perform. I love performing on stage is the biggest adrenaline rush I can get. I stopped doing all the stuff that could hurt me. Used to do all that adrenaline rush stuff that'll hurt you. I'm too old for that now. Now it takes a whole lot longer to recover from something. Shoot, I hurt my elbow fishing the other day, just setting a hook. I'm like, good God, my elbow is killing me now. So I try not to do things to hurt myself anymore. But performing on stage, shoot, I come off stage and my knee is hurting, my ankle's hurting. It's just like, it takes me 2 weeks to recover from it and get back in the gym. But no, I love performing, but I got to be honest with you. I mean, I've been able to do some absolutely incredible performances like the ones I've talked to you about, but I get the most fulfillment out of the motivational speaking. I really do. I get the most fulfillment out of when someone comes up after me after I'm done speaking, and they tell me that I've inspired them to want to go after their dreams, because if I can do it, they can do it. And I'm showing them that a regular guy who came, from boots in the sand in Iraq in 2003 to boots on the center circle of the Grand Ole Opry stage in 2015 to boots in Madison Square Garden in 2018, having my own cowboy boot line in Boot Barn, on Western shelves across the United States, showing them that no matter the losses that you're going to take, no matter the road obstacles that you're going to face in your life, that you can drive yourself to be successful. You just have to want it bad enough and be willing to work for it. And seeing younger kids or even adults that feel like their dreams have passed them by come up to me after the fact and say, man, I tell you what, I really have been sitting on my hands for way too long. It's time for me to stand back up and jump back into it again. And knowing that you're still making a difference, because once again, that purpose that we all want to have as military service members and former military service members, it's great to have that purpose. And I want to continue having that purpose. I even when the music career is long said and done, which, there's a shelf life for artists, I could speak until I can't speak anymore. Yeah. And I can get out there and tell my story about what happened and how and maybe the message may change down the road when I'm not doing music anymore, but telling people about that dream and telling people about how it's possible for you as well. It's an extremely important purpose to have.
I'll tell you, that's one big thing is when you get out, especially being in the military so long, like you said, finding your purpose. Because I know when I first got out, I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I worked in the oil fields, and I did different jobs here and there, but I felt that void that I didn't have when I was in the military. And my brother here, John, we started this podcast with the Swaggy Vet movement and stuff like that. I feel more a sense of purpose now, and it gives me a drive that I didn't have before. And then I just started school again to go for audio engineering to help facilitate what we're trying to do and do music like you. So I definitely trying to find my purpose again, but it's definitely given me a drive that, you know, any veteran can do. Anybody that wants to do anything that you want to do, you can do it, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, we got to collab on a song, guys. We got to collab on a song.
Hey, I'm with it. I'm with
serious.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking. I'll collab with anybody. I got a song, you know, TMR. I'm sure you know TMR, the Marine rapper. He and I actually recorded a song together. I have it hasn't come out yet because I'll give you guys a little sneak something here.
Oh, man,
I have my own. I got 3 different watches that are coming out with Rockwell watches.
Let me see that. Oh,
wow.
Rockwell.
I got my. This is one of my watches. Hold on. That's the preview of it.
Oh, I love it. You see the flag in it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They've all got flags on. Like this is the other one, and I don't have the those are the more dressy ones, but those are going to be coming out. And TMR and I co-wrote a song. Well, I wrote the song and he rapped. I did a country rap, which I've never done a country rap before, but I co-wrote the song and we got a country rap in there, and I asked him to come on and do the rap portion for me because I love his music and I love his drive and what he's doing. He's banging it out. But I collabed with him on that, and that's Rockwell is going to be using it for the marketing campaign for my wash line, which is going to be killer.
That's nice, man.
Yeah, so you know, something down the line. So I love collabing with anybody, especially if I get to collab with fellow veterans. I mean, that's, you know, that's a good thing. It's always good that we continue being brothers and sisters in arms, and you know, stand beside each other and fight for our dreams and fight for something. So if you guys ever want to collab on something, let's do it.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna get together with something. So from retired military, entrepreneur, doing music, opening up, all that type of good stuff. You said, "Hey, let me do some acting." Tell us about your acting.
I've always wanted to act. I mean, I love acting. I love for Halloween. I love like going full on for Halloween and playing characters and stuff. And I mean, I just have always been that way. It's just been part of my personality. I did some stuff back in elementary school, and I tried out for a play in high school and got fired because I was my dad wanted me to make sure I was paying attention to my schoolwork instead of doing acting stuff. Yeah. But anyway, and then the performance thing on stage, it kind of lends itself directly to that because, you know, you're bigger than life and you turn the switch on. You gotta you're putting on a show. But yeah, I got cast as the lead role in a independent film called A Night to Remember, about a Vietnam veteran, kind of almost in the same vein of Walking Tall, the old movie Walking Tall. But Special Forces Vietnam veteran comes back to a small town. Human traffickers come into the town, and he kills them all. It's a great thing.
Nice. That's awesome.
But yeah, I just actually auditioned for a role night before last night as well, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed on because it's another feature film that it's not the lead, but the role that I auditioned for is going to be a completely different. It's not my personality or anything. I actually auditioned for 2 roles. One for a sheriff, which is my personality, and then the other role I auditioned for is a priest. But it's not like it's going to be, I got to be wicked. You know what I'm saying? I got to be psycho and wicked. And I've always wanted to do that kind of a role. So I love it. It was a cool, really, really awesome experience because I'd never been on a movie set before. I'd been on multiple music video sets, but never been on a movie set before. And I got thrown right in as the lead. I was actually supposed to play a portion of that guy's character. Like it was at 3 different times in his life. I was supposed to play a portion of that character. And then we did the table read for it. And they said, Ryan, we're going to take you from 7 lines to 79 pages of lines. You got 2 weeks to memorize as much as you can. Yeah. So it was crazy. It was a lot of fun though. It was really neat. And I don't know when it's going to come out. It's been in post for 2 years now, but once it gets done with post, hopefully it'll come out. And I will tell you this, that I don't know how good it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like at the end because I've seen snippets of here and there. But having my first role, whether the movie sucks or not, hopefully I've at least got, 1 minute clip in there that I can use for my IMDb to get me more roles and more films.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then, so after what you were talking about before about playing a priest, that'll definitely show some versatile with you. And then once they start casting, you get, well, he can do this and he can do that. So that'll definitely, we're going to use him for different stuff.
Yeah, the psychotic side of it as well. I've always wanted to play like the clown in It or Freddy Krueger or something like. I've always wanted to play those kind of roles, and I got cast for one in an independent film a bit back, but the funding ended up falling through for it. But the whole character I was gonna play his name was Metalhead, and he was crazy, and I actually had to learn how to juggle bowling pins because they were going to green screen them and turn them into fake chainsaws and stuff. But it was a carny clown killer horror thing. And I mean, I don't know why I want to play that kind of a role, but I love getting crazy.
So as they would say, you got a lot of irons in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance, your music career, motivational speaking, your brand partnership? How do you balance all that?
Well, here I have a perspective on life that there are two places I'm never going to be again. And a porta potty with 180 degrees trying to take a dump with it all stacked to the seat and toilet paper right up underneath you.
Yeah.
Okay. And not being disgusting, but we all know that one.
Yeah.
And the day I found out my brother died. Mm-hmm. And every day on earth, I've got an opportunity to find success in their honor. And I find a way, and managing, compartmentalizing when I've got to do certain things and whatever. But my life is, I'm an extremely blessed person. My life has been a dream. It's been a nightmare at times, but it's been a dream as well. I choose to focus on the dream part of it and use the nightmare side of it to fuel me towards more dreams. But managing it all, for me, shoot, man, I had to fly helicopters in the Army. This is easy.
Smooth sailing from now on, huh?
Yeah. This is gravy, baby.
Hey, there you go. There you go. So after doing all this, how do you deal sometimes with your mental health? Because I know before, when I first came in, when I was in the 82nd, we were always taught you got to put soldiers first. You're a leader. You got to do this, you come second. And then I had an old head come to me and say, hey, you know what, man, you're just a number. You need to start taking care of yourself. And, I started going to behavioral health, getting seen because, I have 5 deployments myself, and I've, seen some stuff that we've seen, especially my battle buddy here. We've been through a lot of ups and downs when it comes to that type of stuff. So I definitely had to release that pressure and go sit on somebody's couch and talk. Do you kind of have a special way that you deal with it? Or, we talked, you got a lot of stuff you do, but how important is it for mental health, do you think?
What you guys are doing right now is incredibly cathartic. It's getting the one thing, like I said, when I was talking about in that dark place I segregated myself, separated my heart from people that I cared about, and, felt like because I was not the same person that I was before my brother died, it changes you. You see those things, you deal with those things, and it changes you. And whether it be for the better or for the worse, music has always been my, since I've had to deal with that, as I told you, that's been my catharsis. Being around, I have to say straight up, hunting trips, fishing trips, the different things that I've been able to do with nonprofit organizations, being around other veterans, those things are invaluable. 100%. I could tell you right now, there was a veteran that I was on an event with doing a weekend getaway, and we started a tradition, and then I'd send him a picture of that tradition, and he called me and he was bawling. And I said, "What's up, man?" And he said, I had a 45 in my mouth when that text came through, and you reminded me of why I'm alive. Mm-hmm. And since then, he's been flourishing. He's been doing great. And those are the kind of stories, that you always want to hear. But getting up on stage and telling my story about my brothers, every single time I do, it's a small piece of me heals. And sometimes a big piece of me heals. Am I ever going to be completely healed? Obviously, we're sitting here, 2013, my brother-in-law died 11 years later, and I still cry talking about it. Yeah. So it still hurts. So obviously, am I ever going to heal all the way? No, I'm not. But being around other veterans and talking to guys like you, it's like we're hanging out right now. And to me, that's cathartic. Being able to tell my stories cathartic. Listening to other folks' stories, listening to the things they're going through and what they're dealing with, being able to, as former leaders or former brothers left and right of you, brothers and sisters left and right of you, being able to provide some sort of comfort because you've been through it too, and being able to provide some advice. All those things are helpful. The worst thing that anyone out there could do is what I was doing at the beginning. Thank God I had the job I had that really didn't give me a whole lot of time to just be by myself. But the worst thing that you can do is segregate yourself from other folks. And to the point that you were just talking about, going to behavioral health, he's a captain. He's really motivational. He's on Instagram. I can't remember, see something. Anyway, dude's I love following him because he's always doing great stuff. But he posted and talked about the things that the Army, why people don't want to stay in the Army, why people are getting out. And then he went through how he had to miss his first kid's birth because he was on a training exercise. He missed his second kid's birth because his chain of command wouldn't let him. There was something his chain of command wouldn't let him, and then he had to go pick his kids up from school, and he couldn't take his kid to a doctor's appointment. So it's just family stuff, and all these things. And I commented on his page, and I said, if there's any advice that I can give to anybody that's on active duty right now, if you're sick, go to sick call. If you're injured, go to sick call. If you're suffering from PTS, go get help. Because the only thing that cares about you once you get out of the military for the rest of your life is that medical record and that DD-214, because nobody else will. As soon as you're done, you're done.
Absolutely.
You're a number, just like you said. Mm-hmm. But you need to take care of yourself. If you're willing to sacrifice your life for so many other people, how are you not willing to take care of yourself in the process? And you should. But a lot of folks don't look past that because it's all 18, 19, 20-year-olds. They just get in the military. They're thinking they're invincible. They're doing something stupid and twist their ankle, don't realize, oh, no, I just got to tough it out and take some ibuprofen. Don't go to sick call because you twisted your ankle. That could have been 10% disability if you tore a tendon and you didn't know it. You never know. I mean, so I just tell them all that, that for me. And the folks that are about to get out, I mean, just make sure your medical record is tight. Make sure it's tight, because that VA disability process that I had to go through took me 1.5 years.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't get out. I don't know if you got out when they were still doing when they started doing the process while you were on active duty, the VA process while you're on active duty.
I did. Both of us did. Yeah. Yeah.
Mine was not that way. You did a retirement physical, then you took it all to the VA and you started. Problem with me was I immediately jumped into, and this was to, for your question next about the transitioning military, this is kind of answering that question on its own. But I got out of the military as a retired W3, going from being an academic instructor, former Black Hawk pilot, to a personal trainer, a bar back, and going to college full time. Mm-hmm. That's what my life turned into. My safety net was my military retirement. That was it. I had 2 kids in high school that were doing traveling, so I was broke all over again. So I ended up having to take 2 part-time jobs, go to college full-time, try and finish my degree just in case music wasn't going to work out. I thank God for my wife and her dad, because they brought me into the business and afforded me the opportunity to get back into music again. But, the best advice that I've got for your military folks out there transitioning, just make sure that your medical record is tight, and don't be afraid to complain about anything on that VA physical. Don't be afraid to. A lot of folks are like, oh, I got this ringing in my ear, but it's not that bad. I'm going to tell you right now, anybody out there that's got 100% permanent total disability and knows that check that's coming in for the rest of your life, plus the benefits that come with it, the only thing that, like I said, the only thing that cares about you for the rest of your life is that medical record and your DD-214.
100%. 100%. Hey, you just recently made the cover of a magazine. Show us that magazine, man.
Oh yeah, At Ease magazine, baby. It's my first magazine cover. First magazine cover. I actually wrote an article in it. I actually wrote for the magazine the edition before this, and then they put me on the cover and wrote a really nice story, told my story. But yeah, out of all the music, everything that I've done in the music industry, I've never had a cover of a magazine. Of course, it's a veteran-run magazine. So folks out there, if you want to support veteran-run, veteran-owned, and all the stories are about veterans in there. So, it's great stuff. It'll inspire you to want to be better. It'll inspire you to want to do better. Yeah, and having my own magazine cover doesn't suck.
Heck yeah. You got anything in closing for us, Ryan?
Hey, if anybody's down in Central Florida, I got a show on September 6th with the Warrior Shield Foundation. I got Bo Bice from American Idols opening up for me. We're going to raise money for the Sub-Zero mission. That is they help out in general. The Sub-Zero mission helps out homeless people, but there is a subcomponent that specifically helps out homeless veterans. And all the money, the proceeds from that weekend, the concert, the gala on Saturday night, are all going to go towards the Sub-Zero mission. You guys, you become part of a family. If any of you veterans out there want to come down and just get some camaraderie, hang out with like-minded people, see a rocking concert, come on down September 6th. Check out my social media pages and all that stuff that they post on this. We'll have all of that. It's on my website, ryanweaver.net. Come out and visit with us. Say hello in person. I'm just a normal dude. Maybe we'll throw back some tequila together.
Heck yeah, man. And that's in Orlando, correct?
Yep, Orlando, September 6th.
September 6th in Orlando, y'all. Well, man.
Hey, by the way, if y'all want to come do you're in Florida, right?
Well, I have family in Florida. I'm here in Clarksville.
Clarksville, that's right. Yeah, you told me that. Who was in Florida? Oh, I got another podcast I got to be on. I'm sorry. I got another podcast I got to be on that's in Florida, out of Tampa. I apologize. Okay. But yeah, man.
Yeah, my brother's down in Georgia, John. So, but we
go visit your family. Bring your podcast. You guys bring your podcast down. Do podcasts all weekend. Get content with a bunch of heroes down there. You'll love it.
Man, that's a good idea, man. We appreciate that. You got anything for closing battle?
No, brother. I appreciate you for coming on, Ryan. Thanks for everything. Thanks for being an inspiration, brother. And keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Hey, man, I tell you, it's great to meet both of you guys over Zoom, or over StreamYard. But, I really do appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to tell my story. And please, if you need anything from me, you got my number. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Absolutely, man. Thanks again, Swaggy Vet Nation. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.
All right, brother.
All right.